Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here, and today we're in 7th grade history class where many of us are students trying to pass notes secretly to our classmates. But one of us is the teacher trying to catch the students in the act. Paper Trail is a hidden movement game with a twist where one player is trying to find all the other players. Now it's for 2 to 5 players, takes about 45 minutes to play, it's for ages 13 and up, and published by Lime Green Games. Now it's on Kickstarter right now, so I'm going to show you how it works and I'll see you on the other side. This is a Kickstarter preview, so all the art and components you see here are prototypes. They are not final. To see all the most up-to-date art and components, check the Kickstarter link in the description of this video. Now this is a hidden movement game, sort of in the reverse, because in this game, one player plays as the teacher, and they're going to be using this large board. Now this is a board of the classroom, and there's different students in different colored areas, and you're the teacher, and you're trying to teach, and you're trying to have not a lot of distractions. And the other players are the students, and they're going to be passing notes or attempting to from certain students over to other students. And you're trying to catch them and confiscate those notes. So essentially, you're the one trying to find where all the other players are passing those notes. Essentially that hidden movement aspect. So it's one versus many in the reverse way that most hidden movement games are played. For example, the other players in a secret way are going to be trying to get notes passed. For example, this one would say from Willow to Hudson. Now this would be secret behind a player's shield that I'll show you in just a minute, and this is a romance type of note. Ooh, it's worth 10 points if they're able to get it from Willow to Hudson. Now the reason why that one's worth so many points is because Willow is way down here, and Hudson is way up here, and actually the names go alphabetical order, left to right, top to bottom. It's a little easier to find them, but they're going from one side of the board all the way to the other side of the board. So that's what the players are trying to do, the students, but the teacher is trying to deduce where the notes are or where they've been and try to confiscate them. If the teacher can confiscate 4 notes total from any or all players, the teacher will win and all the other players lose. Now all the other players are the students, and they have a shield so the teacher can't see what's going on. They have the same board here, and they're trying to get their notes. Now through a selection process, they're going to be able to select 2 notes to start with. And they're basically going to be trying to track these. For example, we have from Zoe to Ian. And so we're going to start this. We marked the first one as like sort of a circle with a dot in it, and this is where Zoe is. And this is where they're trying to get it here, Ian. This one goes from Layla to Willow. And so Layla is going to go from here. And the second one we use a square and an X, and this is where the note is right now. We're trying to get it all the way to Willow, and it's worth a certain amount of points. Now remember, the teacher wins if they confiscate 4 notes from any or all players, but the students have a chance to win if any student is able to get 3 notes successfully delivered. And then the game's going to end. One of the students is going to win, the one with the most points. So let's talk about how a game works. It's going to go from all the students are simultaneously, secretly taking turns, at the same time behind their own shield, and then the teacher's going to take an action, and it keeps going back and forth. All the students go simultaneously, and then the teacher goes back and forth. Now on your player shield here, when it's the students' turns, they have 3 main actions that they can do per turn. They can pass a note, which essentially is moving it. They can score a note if they've gotten it to where it needs to get to, or they can draw a card. We'll tell you what some of these cards do in just a moment. Now you do have some mischief missions. Again, through a drafting procedure, you'll get some of these, you'll throw a couple out. But like here, I'm going to get 4 points if I'm able to read 2 gossip notes. This one is gossip. Again, I got to select some of these. Now, if I'm able to get 2 of these read, it's going to be worth 4 points. I also need to finish a note or read a note involving the green zone. So again, these are sort of my goals in the course of the game. I can also get more of these later that we'll talk about. So let's talk about some of the basics of this. So when it's your turn, again, you can pass a note. Now remember, we're trying to get my 2 notes, like Zoe up to Ian and Layla to Willow. So we can start passing these. Now you'll see that there are some solid lines here, and those are easier to do. Remember, we get 3 actions. So I might want to move this to 2-2. And I'll put a little dot there, and I will place this here. This tells me that this is where the note is currently, and this is where it came from. So you're able to track where the note has been and where it is right now. Now for a second action, I can move this one again, or maybe I want to move this one. So we want to get this down to Willow, so maybe I'll move this there to land. And remember, we're using an X on the square for where this square is, so we'll put it there, we'll put an X, so now we know that that's where that one is. Now, if you move both notes in a turn, you get to collect a rumor. And so we did so we have a rumor. This is sort of a currency in the game. Now you'll be able to spend that currency for certain minor actions. Also, each player gets a player power. Some of them get more points for certain things. This player power is I get 1 rumor discounted on all minor actions. So for me, playing a card's free. Sneaking, which we'll talk about in a minute, usually costs a rumor, but for me it's free. I still have to tell the teacher I'm doing it. We'll talk about this in just a moment, but giving you some more strategy, some more things to think about as you gain rumors. Now for my third action, look, I want to get this up here to E, and so I kind of want to move it in this direction. Now you'll notice that some of these are dotted lines. It's like a note, a piece of note into a ball that you're throwing. You could go here, which would save me a whole action, but when you go like this, it makes noise because you're throwing it and this person is catching it. Now when you do that, normally you would have to tell the teacher, hey, I made noise in this gray area because this is where it landed. And that's not great because there's only 2 places. That means the teacher's going to know for sure that you're in one of those 2 spots. So normally if I said, hey teacher, I made noise in gray, they're going to know that you threw into one of these 2 things. They would actually make a note here saying, hey, purple made noise there. And they'll know, and you probably don't want to give them a 50% chance of where that note is right now. So we probably wouldn't do that, but that's what you're trying to think about and how you're trying to get around the teacher. However, you can play a card for free. We have a card here. It says soft throw. Throw a note without making noise. So what I could do is take this card. I would give it face down to the teacher so they know I've done something, but they don't know what I've done. Now there's only 3 different things those cards can do, so they have an idea of what you may have done, but they won't know for sure. And so we actually threw that, but because we used that card, we did not make any noise. Now you may have noticed that the teacher board has these question marks on it. That's because at the beginning of the game it gets seated a little bit with those suspected desks. And also each game you can play with a different teacher with different abilities. The easiest one is Mrs. Weems. It's an even difficulty for the teacher. They don't have any powers or penalties, and it's recommended for basic play. But as you learn the game, or to balance the game, you can play as Mrs. G, where the difficulty is not that hard because during setup, they pick which 4 desks to suspect. It gives the teacher sort of a leg up, and they receive 2 teacher cards when a student reads a note. But then you can make it harder on the teacher, where you do not suspect any desks during setup, and it's harder for them to get extra action. So you can balance the game depending on how well is the teacher for the other players. Now let's talk about a couple other things. First of all, when we did throw this, you also get a rumor anytime you do throw a note. So I've got some rumors that I'm going to be able to spend for currency, but you'll notice that these suspected desks are the ones that were started at the beginning of the game for the teacher. So the teacher knows where they are, but all of the players do. Everyone has a thing there. Now these desks are suspected. So by default, you can't go there unless you sneak. Now to sneak, again, these cards do different things. You might have one of these sneak cards, and you pass a note into a suspected desk for free. So essentially, you could basically use this, give it to the teacher. Again, they don't know if you snuck, or they don't know if you soft threw. They're not sure. Normally, you could spend a rumor to sneak. So you would just say, hey, I'm spending a rumor to sneak. And you would spend the rumor by, Xing out like this. Now, we would have done that if we were sort of trying to move to one of these suspected desks, and we wanted to sneak. Now keep in mind, my player power was I actually got a discount, so that actually wouldn't have costed me 1 rumor, but for most players in the default way it would have. Now every time any student spends rumors, they're going to be telling the teacher how many they spent, and the teacher is going to be tracking these, and they're going to be gaining the rumors that those students are using. And they're going to be using this to their advantage, as I'll show you in just a bit. Now the teacher's also going to get 3 actions, and here are the things that they could possibly do. They could suspect, they can accuse, they can draw more cards, or play a card. So let's talk about suspecting. So let's say the teacher does a suspect. They suspect a certain desk. Let's say they say Tessa. All of the student players will look to see if their note is currently there or it has been there. And that's why players are tracking where their note has been. Now if nobody had been there and nobody is there, and everyone said, nope, wasn't there, then the teacher would just in black mark this as a suspected desk. All of the other students also have to place a question mark because that desk is suspected, which means they're not going to be able to go through there without sneaking. But let's say both the purple player and the green player had either been there or is there now. They both confessed that they had been there. Then the teacher's going to put both of them there. That's a way for them to take notes to say, hey, those players had a note there, and it helps them deduce where they may or may not be. But again, even if there's, regardless, all other players are going to be placing a question mark there because that desk is now suspected, and they're not going to be able to move to that desk without, sneaking. And in this case, the teacher's going to gain a rumor for every hit that they got. So they're actually going to gain 2 more rumors. We'll talk about spending these in just a moment. So let's say they want to do an accuse. Now they can only accuse a desk that has been suspected. So in this case, it's one of the ones that maybe started, or maybe this one. So they might say, hey, I'm accusing Tessa's desk. Uh-oh, we're caught. We're there, so we have to say hit and let them know that. So the teacher's going to be able to confiscate that note, and they place it on this scoreboard that shows the teacher has now confiscated 1 note. As players successfully get notes, they'll be showing this here to keep score at the end of the game. But again, because the teacher's confiscated, that's one. They're 25% of the way to winning, because again, if they confiscate any 4 notes, the game ends and they've won. Now, the student is going to read off the route that went through. So they'll say Zoe, Tutu, Tessa. Now, all players, including the teacher, is going to remove any suspect marks from all players on there because, well, that was a suspected desk, and now this is freed up. So it kind of freed up things for other players now. So I would have erased those 2, and then I would draw a new card. And now this one is going from Bo to Piper is my new note. Now the teacher's turn ends when you accuse, but I'm kind of just going through these actions showing you the different things that you could do. They could have drawn 2 cards, which are basically these teacher cards, and for an action they could play one of these cards. And these do all sorts of different things. For example, it might be a suspicious zone, and you must say hit for each note that you have in the green zone right now, and they mark noise. Or maybe it's a purge where you accuse 3 suspicious desks and confiscate all notes found. Or maybe it's interrogate and you name 1 zone that you're in right now, and then you mark noises. So it's just a way these cards help the teacher figure out where people might be. So typically you'll get 3 actions as the teacher. Again, the accuse has to be your last action of your turn. But we talked about rumors earlier. Now, you get 3 actions as the teacher, but you can spend rumors. At first, you spend 2 of them. So we could spend these 2, and we can mark this off, and now we can take a 4th action on a turn instead of 3. And then the next time, we have to get 3 rumors to take that 4th action, then 4, then 5, then 6. It gets harder and harder over the course of the game to be able to, trigger a 4th action. Now let's say it was much later in the game, and I had a note that went from Layla, and it went through all of these spots, as you can see. And this goes like this, and then goes down here, and then goes here. We get there, and we actually have done it. Now we have to take an action to score that note. Now when they score that note, first of all, it has to be the last action of your turn, and then they will basically say where the note went. So they'll say Layla, Lan, Kai, Jax, Mia, Pete, Osha, Tad, and Willow. And as they're doing that, all other players, including the teacher, are going to be erasing any of those question mark suspected desks. They're sort of clearing out the suspicious out of those desks. Even though it was maybe from this player, if it's from other players as well, they're going to erase them. So for example, they may have had on the teacher board a black one here, meaning no one was found there, or here, which was me, or here was another player. They're all getting erased on all players' boards, the students and the teachers. So it makes it a little easier for everyone to sort of move around because that's been done. So that purple player is going to score this. It's going to go on the board. It's going to give him 7 points. It's a romance one that can help with some end game goals and cards and things. Now when a note is scored, the teacher's going to get an additional card that will sort of help them out. And at the beginning of their next turn, they'll draw a new note. This is from Dom to Violet, so I've already got this set up. And that's pretty much how the game works in a nutshell. And keep in mind, players are trying to fulfill their mischiefs and their sort of their end game goals, their missions. Remember, you're taking some free actions to play a card or sneak around, or spending 2 rumors to exchange a note. Maybe you don't like this. Maybe it's going through too many suspected desks and such. You can exchange a note, or maybe you can draw 2 and keep one of the new missions for 3 rumors and things like that. So the players are trying to spend those rumors in order to get have different options there. And remember, the game ends if the teacher has confiscated 4 notes, they win, or if any other student has gotten 3 notes all the way red to where they're supposed to get to, and players will add up their points based upon their cards and their end missions, and in that case, one of the students will win. Well, there you have Paper Trail. Now, as I showed in the overview, you're trying to be the teacher catching 4 notes being passed, or you're a student trying to have the most points if you don't get caught. Now, if you'd like to see the most up-to-date art and the components and all the different pledge levels available, you can click the link below me in the description of this video. Now, that's going to take you directly to the Kickstarter project page, and I'm sure that Lime Green Games would love your support.